Hello, my lovey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I, Melissa Trumbull, am here with Karla Ukman, our fave financial planner. As you know, I'm a life coach and helping people get all the stuff so they have a functional life, a life that works for you. Let's talk about boundaries, please. The holidays are in full fuckery, and you may perhaps have noticed that it didn't replenish you. It wasn't joyous. It wasn't
Mhm.
something that added to your cup. So, Karla, please, I welcome your thoughts on this. We were just talking about it,
Yes.
and let the Kraken free. Let's talk.
Well, thanks for having me. And we've missed a couple weeks because of the holidays. So this is quite on point because I'm like, no, we are doing this. We are getting on the internet streets. We're going live. And yeah, the holidays were exhausting. I have been exhausted since before Thanksgiving. And yeah, well, I hosted Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yikes.
So, yeah. So, but this is like my 19th year of hosting either Thanksgiving or Christmas or, something.
And how
Always
many
hosting.
people are we talking about here?
It ranges based off of different sides of the family. So, it can range from, you know, 8 and then including us to, more. So it just depends. The thing is that it doesn't matter how many people though, like you still have to clean the same amount. You still have
Right.
to like bake the same amount. You still have to it's like okay, even if you're hosting like 4 people, you still have
Fair.
the same amount of work. So, but yeah, I came to a realization that and you and I were talking about this, if the holidays are stressful and people are taking advantage of your kindness, your willingness to open your home, and are treating you like they are expecting it, there there's a lot of resentment that can you know be produced, and the burnout isn't worth it. And so I came to
Fair.
a realization that there's definitely going to be more boundaries set when it comes to that, because I want to enjoy the holidays.
Right. Yes. And something happened on my side of the street this year. In late October, I had foot surgery and
Mhm.
I couldn't, I mean, I just couldn't be on my feet for very long. And I wasn't able to, prepare anything for the gatherings at the holidays. And everybody chipped in. And it was
Mhm.
so fun because everyone got to make sure, like, okay, what is it for you? Is it pumpkin pie? Is it this kind of potatoes? Is it that side? Whatever it is, people brought it. And then, my partner and his kids, while I sat at the dining room table, wound up making the main course and putting everything together. And it was super fun. So then when we rolled into what we do is something a little different. We have all the adult kids and their families over for a not holiday day so that it doesn't conflict with, whether you want to have your own celebration or go somewhere else or travel or whatever. It just makes it easier. So when we did the same thing, like on the weekend of the 21st, it was incredible because if there was something people wanted, they brought it, and we were clear, like this is what we're okay to do, and it was literally like we promised we would at least have rotisserie chickens. Like,
Nice.
I mean, yes, we decorated, we cleaned, we did all that kind of a thing. But as far as all of because I grew up, one of nine plus cousins, and I mean, it would literally be 20, 30, 40 people. And
Mhm.
everything was not only homemade, but it was made at our house.
Mhm.
And it was drudgery, like 3 days of all hands
Mhm.
cooking,
Mhm.
making all the things.
Mhm.
Like the big cheat on time was using frozen pie crust. Kill me
Mhm.
now. No, why can't you just buy the pie?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
the good people at Costco were instrumental in
Mhm.
providing the food, but also it kind of changed it into something a little more egalitarian, a little more like, yes, we're all a group of adults. What do we want to do? Let's define this together.
Mhm.
And so that was wildly cool because I released any expectation of like what the foods would be, how many desserts would there be, because it winds up being 10 of us, including
Mhm.
little kids.
Mhm.
So really, one Costco pie is
Mhm.
enough for everyone.
Mhm.
And why make it harder than that?
Mhm. Yeah. I think that, a lot of people do that with the food. I think the expectations when the people arrive,
Mhm.
that's where the boundaries start getting blurred.
Let's get into it, girl. Come on.
So, I know talking to my friends and, people, it's like, okay, so yeah, they got that all pat down, they got the food, everybody bring their own stuff, whatever. But when they arrive, how do they show up for the host? How do they
Mm,
show up for everybody else? How do they project they're either I'm excited to be there or I'm not excited to be there? How do they
yeah.
handle the host's uh rules and expectations because you're a guest in their home?
Right.
So how is that being handled? How is that can you have adult conversations without getting upset and being like, "Oh, well, this person has these expectations at their house, so I should as a guest, I should follow those." But how do you not get upset when that person creates boundaries for you?
Right.
And that's what I see mostly the conflict of when they're actually there.
Well, and also, I don't think it comes naturally necessarily to everyone to be able to communicate what it is
Mhm.
that you want as an experience of being the host and everyone gathering, like are they going to come in and then do they bring it in a serving dish? Are they having to bake something? Are they transferring it? Ironing out all those details feels um not petty, but it just is so detail oriented. I was just like, "My gosh," but I needed to know who needed the oven or the stovetop. Like,
Mhm.
what's going on? Because 'Cause we've got different people coming from different households. So if everyone shows up needing to bake something, well, I have one oven,
Mhm.
like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or who helps with cleaning?
right.
Or how are the expectations of the kids behaving at your house?
Mhm. Right. Is it
And then
everybody clears their own place or is it,
mhm.
like what does it look like?
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that can be tricky too, because sometimes it just feels like, you know what? Everyone who can't vote, go outside, go play football or whatever you want to do. Just get out of here and let us adults whip this into shape. And that doesn't help anybody understand like the community and working together and all the things. But we have to pick our battles. And yet, so going back and forth like that, I mean, it's can feel very drill sergeanty if you have a whole list of expectations, but what do you like what do you do with your people? Like, do you have a call with each person? Or I mean, it gets very time consuming.
Yeah, I think throughout the years it's definitely shifted because you have younger kids coming up the pipeline cuz when you're all adults, I think that it's easier
Yeah.
to communicate cuz you all have your group text or
Hmm.
whatever. But when you start adding in either, brother-in-laws, sisters-in-laws, in-laws, right? And then you start
Hmm.
adding the kids in, and then, and cousins and kids of those cousins. It starts becoming a little, yeah. Do you pick your battles? Like, how do you pick your battles? What are the
Hmm.
expectations? And with the kid situation, I haven't figured it out yet because I I have expectations of how children should be disciplined and how they should act at someone's house as a guest, and other
Mhm.
people don't have those.
Right, or they have different ones. Yeah.
The generation that is coming up with kids, they look at things differently than my generation,
Of
and then the
course.
generation before mine looked at things differently. So how do you recommend the blending of that, though? Because that's where I see a lot of conflict too, and the boundaries of, well, we don't expect them, the kids, to eat any of the food, and then other people are like, wait, I just spent hours and hours eating this or making this food, they should at least try it, so things like that.
Right. Right. So a lot of that is deciding how you want things to go,
Hmm.
right? And recognizing that just because there are generational trends, or it used to be this way, now it's that way. First of all, it wasn't like that for every household. It's
Right.
always been like a conglomeration of attitudes, habits, and social mores, and they take that and put it together and say this is how a generation does it. But it's not. First, stop comparing yourself to whatever the flow is, and whatever this is how Americans do this. Well, there's millions of Americans, and we don't all do things the same way. And
Mhm.
they treated me as if I were ill, because I didn't have any plans like on the day.
Mhm.
And I'm like, if anything, my husband went up to see his mom who's ailing, and I couldn't travel
Mhm.
because I was still booted up. And so, he went for the day, and I had a beautiful day crafting and just doing whatever the heck I wanted. And people were worried for me because I was alone on the
Alone.
holiday. And I'm like, well, except that the Sunday before we had all gathered and had a blast for 5 hours. You know what I mean? And so, like, that
Mhm.
box was checked. And also, I couldn't go anywhere. Everything was
Yeah.
closed, or most things were closed. So I was just like, oh, poor me. I got to stay at my house. And I decided not to work. So I was happy as a clam. But to answer your question about how do you make those expectations clear, it's conversation.
Mhm.
You mentioned a group text. That's one
Mhm.
way. But honestly, keep in mind, um, I'm always drawing on my experience of teaching English as a second language. That's my
Mhm.
volunteer work. And humor doesn't translate
Oh, no.
in writing. It's very hard. And even if you leave a voicemail so they can hear your intonation, it's still difficult, because if the stakes feel high to you because you're hosting, the stakes feel high to everyone.
Mhm.
Everyone's trying to craft this lovely, wonderful, enriching, family oriented situation, and it looks different for everyone.
Mhm.
So whatever your expectations are, especially about cleaning, what are you going to eat? I mean, like, is your rule, hey, if you don't like this, you can have a PB&J and fix it yourself and make yourself a
Mhm.
sandwich? Or is
Mhm.
it, you sit and join the group and chat and have fun and eat a roll? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, I think that it's just important that everyone comes together to say, like, what is okay.
Mhm.
And is it everyone finishes and then takes their plate? Do they scrape it? Do they rinse it? Do they put it in the dishwasher? Or do you want less of the little fingers on that aspect, because you don't want 7-year-olds to load your dishwasher? Fair. you
Or
know
just use disposable.
100%. They had darling holiday plates. I mean, I thought they were actually pretty,
Mhm.
and they weren't plastic either. So I didn't feel
Mhm.
badly about that, because I can
Mhm.
you'll be shocked to know, catastrophize my own plastic use. I know, surprise. But I just think that it's really important, especially with family, to find the way, with love and kindness and no confrontation in your heart, to share what you would like to happen, and then be open to hear what they think.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
could also, and because what they think could be like, you're absurd. My 7-year-old hasn't cleared their own plate ever.
Mhm.
And quite honestly, I don't want them in my kitchen, or like
Mhm.
whatever. I'm just saying, like, different families do things differently.
Mhm.
So I mean, I was raised by wolves, so I certainly don't have the backdrop of, communal cooperation of, how to make something go well. It's a function of using this magic contraption, our mouths, and saying what it
Mhm,
is that we want, need, prefer not to do, will grudgingly accept, and not just letting it fester and harden into that resentment.
mhm, mhm,
Because once that happens, the 4 horsemen are riding, and
mhm,
contempt has entered the building, and that resentment is really difficult to unseat once it
mhm,
nestles in.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, people that host more than others and
Mhm.
they have communicated and those boundaries are still not, followed,
Yeah,
and that's where that resentment comes in. So what do you give for advice on that? Because for me, I'm not hosting anymore. Okay. Uh
perfect. That's
and
perfect.
and this isn't spilling family drama. It's all been 19 years of communicating, and when boundaries haven't been um, followed for so many years, it's like, okay, now I'm creating this other boundary.
That's fine.
Somebody else can host, and I will gladly support them in the way that they host and the way that they want things ran, but I'm not going to do it anymore.
That's 100% okay, and that's what a boundary is. You're not trying to control other people's behavior. You're saying what you will accept.
Yes, that's
And
the key.
so year after year, you've overlooked, or,
Mhm,
maybe you tried to do some, back and forth to, kind of explain where you're coming from, or, whatever it is. But holding a boundary, which does mean, okay, I'm not hosting next year.
mhm.
And, you don't, it's hard to say I will never host again. I mean, it's not like,
Oh, it's not happening. I have never hosted the other side of the family. I'm one of those people. So people that are watching this, it's I'm one of those people that is like, okay, well, once you have really screwed me over, it's not
we're
happening
done.
anymore.
And
Because
that's fine.
to
That's
your
a boundary.
exactly to your point though, doesn't mean that I'm not getting together with them.
Fair. 100%. Right, you're not saying you never wanna see them,
No.
and the thing that's important to understand with boundary making, I'm from the deep South, I come from a hive type family where you never considered your own personal preference, and so just identifying what I want can be an hours long situation. And then I'm really good at expressing things once I can land on what it is that I want, or what is acceptable to me and not acceptable. And then you have to be able to remove yourself.
Mhm,
Again, you can't just leave your own house. However, you can remove yourself from future duties, future
mhm,
hosting. You can excuse yourself from the room, and there can be any number of excuses for that. Oh, looks like the kids are getting into some mischief. Well, they probably are. They're kids. So
yeah.
then that's an easy out. Are they outside? Great. You get to leave the house. Are they, you know what I mean? Or I'll go see what mischief the kids are getting into. Or I'm going to
Mhm,
go, you know what? I haven't talked to Aunt so and so. And so I'm going to go see what's going
mhm,
on with that knitting club of hers. Or,
mhm,
if she's still doing the spin classes or whatever.
mhm.
It doesn't have to be elegant. You just have to have
Yeah.
a segue, and a kindness. This is your affect, your expression, your
Mhm,
tone, your body
mhm,
language. These are how we communicate. And you
mhm,
just skedaddle.
mhm. I
And
love that. I
yeah,
love that you're giving people permission to create that boundary. It's not cutting people off,
yeah.
it's not eliminating family. It's not I think that the problem with and I'm Midwest.
Okay.
So, speaking your boundaries, it's taken the wrong way constantly, and it's like, "Oh, you're aggressive," or, "Oh,
Right.
same type of thing." So I love how you're talking about that because I think a lot of times we don't express the way that we feel with certain boundaries because we don't want to come across as aggressive or
Right.
mean or whatever those stereotypes are.
Right. And let's just keep in mind, let's go back and knock somebody in the head who implanted that you can never say no, that saying no is mean.
Yes.
That's, like, what? No, like there are things we cannot handle at different periods of time, whether you've got young kids or you're taking care of other relatives or, like whatever. If,
Mhm,
if work has been
mhm.
a disaster, there are a lot of reasons why you don't have the bandwidth to do something. And
Yeah,
it's okay to say that.
yeah, yeah. I like that a lot because me not hosting, for example, doesn't mean that I'm not going to help in other ways, but also it's okay for me to say no.
100%. Exactly. It's okay to not answer your door. It's okay to not answer your phone. It's
Mhm,
okay to take a moment and center yourself and be like, okay, so and so's calling. I remember I asked them to call me because, okay, here we go.
mhm.
Like just take a moment and be ready for what you anticipate, and also ready for them to be bringing up something totally different.
Yeah,
Because whatever else happened, and now they've
yeah.
got to fly to wherever, or you just we think we know how everything's going to go, and giving ourselves the latitude to not have to know what
Mhm,
everyone wants. Yes, please. I'd like seconds of that, because we don't know. We know, I mean, I barely know what's going on in this situation here, because I mean, my attitudes change.
mhm.
Like if especially for instance this year, if I had a day where I was able to get around and everything was great, I'd be like, heck yeah, I can cook. Well, that's just not reasonable to anticipate. Like it
No.
could be a day where I can only stand for 10 minutes. Well, guess what?
Mhm.
There's nothing other than a sandwich that you can make in 10 minutes. Facts. But I think the important part, let me get back to the boundaries, is that boundaries are not to control other people.
Mm,
Boundaries are
mhm,
simply to say what we are allowing in our lives.
mhm,
And so that's the
mhm,
difference. And when those boundaries are not honored, if someone is trying to trample over us or just to ignore what we said we needed, we can remove ourselves. We can, depends on what your moxie level is. You can ask the other person to, hit the bricks. You
mhm,
can enlist the help of others who are there. There are strategies. And this is when I tell the people I work with, fall back on what that movie is that you're directing of your life
mhm.
and behave. I mean, obviously, Meryl Streep is going to play me, duh. But,
Of course.
behave as the calm, focused, elegant, fun loving, pick your adjectives, how this character is going to respond
Mhm,
in a way that feels good. And it feels good because you're standing up for yourself.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I love these conversations that we have, and I hope everybody else, enjoys these as much as I do. Because yeah, and it can flow into any part of our lives. So it doesn't have to be
100%.
just the holidays. We're using this as example, but it can be in any place. I see this a lot with money and wealth,
Uh-huh.
creating boundaries. And that is something that a lot of us have to work on when it comes to creating boundaries with our wealth, especially during the holidays.
Right. Because we want to be generous.
Mhm.
And yet, what does that generosity look like? Is it
Mhm.
setting up a tuition program for the grandkids? Is it or is it showering them with, stuff?
Mhm. Yeah. And also not doing anything because you don't have to give a
That's fair.
gift
It's an
or
option.
money to show your love.
Yep.
And I see
100%.
that a lot where we've been conditioned to spend money and do that to show our love during the holidays when you might not actually have the funds, and it's okay to not have the funds.
And let's add another layer. It could also be that you're not a great gift giver.
Oh, yeah. Mhm,
I
mhm, mhm.
like if I have an idea, it typically will be a really good one and a great match. But sometimes I'm like, but I love them so much. Why can't I think of something? What am I supposed to do? And we have to be aware that not everyone has our same talents.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I see a lot of family dynamics when it comes to the wealth part and where people feel bad to saying no. Again, the word no is looked at as negative and bad,
Right.
especially when it comes to gifting. And it's like, no, I can't do that this year, or no, I'm doing that, and then people are like, oh, well, they have this internal judgment of themselves for saying no, and then other people judge them for saying no.
100%. And that also, let's take away the negativity around can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you're physically unable. We can all turn
Yeah.
ourselves inside out and scrape the veins out of our body
Mm-hmm.
to help other
Mm-hmm.
people. Like, that's not the point. But the point is, if you've got your money plan and it includes this amount for gift giving, well, you cannot add to the whatever. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
but they just got a new house and they have a baby and they have okay. Good for them. I love them, and I've already spent my budget,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yep. Yep. It is okay.
Ah, this is
Mm.
awesome. Karla Ukman, thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining me. She
Thank
is
you.
not your father's advisor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have financial questions, please reach out to her. And if you have mindset or life questions, please reach out to me, because
Yeah.
if I can put myself back together, what? You can. It's not, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just kind of tedious. So, happy almost New Year,
Yes.
and let's rock as we honor our boundaries. Hugs,
Yes.
hugs, hugs.
Bye.